I'd like to invite Professor Anca Dan of the Ecole Normale Supérieure and Professor Niki Evelpidou of the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens to take their seats. Anca, Niki, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. I'm very glad to be here with you, Anca. Anca Dan is a professor of classics at the Ecole Normale Supérieure. She's a historian and archaeologist whose work connects the ancient world with some of the most important questions of our present and our future. Some of you may wonder what a geologist may discuss here today with an archaeologist. I will say that our two disciplines have more in common than one might think. And first of all, both of us will learn from the past. And there is a very important time overlap where the two disciplines can become really powerful. And I will say a few things about the multidisciplinarity when we try to reconstruct paleogeographical evolution and paleoenvironmental evolution, from where we may get so much information about past climate, the environment, the changes that happen in the past, but also about the ancient societies. So we both learn from the wisdom of the past, and when we reconstruct the paleoenvironment, we don't only get information about the wisdom of the landscape, of the ecosystems, of the natural processes, but also the choices that people made in the past, and we may get information, get wisdom from their actions. So, Anca, from your perspective, I would like to ask you, what's the relationship with ancient people and the environment?
Thank you very much, Niki. Thank you very much to the organizer of this event, from which I'm learning a lot. First of all, Niki, I would say that we do not have ecology nor ecologism in antiquity as I understand them today. So as a science of the system between humans, animals, and the nature. This is something which shows up only in the 19th century with Ernst Haeckel as ecologie, or with the biocenosis of Carl Moebius. Yesterday, we had a very nice panel about the banana. Today, I suggest you to have the panel about the mussel. And I did not bring the mussel because I spare you the smell, but it is about Moebius and the mussel ecosystem that we should talk if we want to talk about ecosystems. So that means about the interaction which makes possible life in a precisely geographical environment. And if ancient people already noticed that an individual, an animal, or a human being, or a community is dependent on the environment, so there are relationships between the two. And even if we have definition of space or place, like topos in Aristotle, which really relies the environment and the individual or the community, we do not have this thinking of a system. So ancient thinking systems, ancient religions are not ecological in the meaning we are understanding them today. There are differences which should be made. What we have in ancient cultures in general is, of course, the respect for nature, and this respect can bring up to rituals, to cults, to religions. In many ancient cultures, we have the respect to our mother god, goddess Earth, and the fertility. And I put here two images, one from today Syria, the other from today Egypt, from the Hellenistic and Roman period, which shows you Gaia here, which benefits from the water and the seeds and make the karpoi, so the what you can take out of the earth when you have ions, so like a cosmic god interacting with her, or when you have here Isis in the place of Gaia, and something like Saturn or Dionysos, the big god, which makes possible the working of this unity of life. Professor Rangos mentioned the importance of the unity of life in the Greek thought since Archaic period, and I would like to remind here Pherekides of Syros, so for some the professor of Pythagoras, who had this very nice poem about Zas, so the principle of life, which transforms his wife Ktonie, so the land, the earth, into Gaia, into what it is, a living earth, which makes the life of the humans possible. So we have this unity that you can see in art, because this is coming from the Greek thought. And of course, about this unity, other civilization thought, so like the Chinese civilization. We can compare ancient Chinese texts and maps with texts and maps that we have in the Greek world, and I just put here some maps of China from the 2nd century BC, so Hellenistic time, with what we can have as a Artemidorus papyrus map in Egypt. You see that both civilizations try to learn from the nature, from the wisdom of nature. Both civilizations respect the ancestral wisdom, but what the Greeks did, it's a little bit different, and it's about that I would like to say some words. So, of course, all civilizations are in contact, and the Greeks learned from the Babylonians, just like Iranians, Zoroastrians learn both from the Babylonians and the Greeks. The Greeks, of course, learned from the Babylonians and developed a system that we can see, for example, in Hesiod, in which there is a unity of nature with its own wisdom, with an okeanos, which is the source of all the rivers, and the general principle of fecundity. And on top of this system, ancestral wisdom, Aristotle built his own observations about how water circulates into the nature. So Aristotle has theories about evaporation, condensation, precipitation, infiltration. This is still not the modern model of circulation of the water into nature. We must distinguish what Aristotle is saying from the modern system. But what Aristotle does is already to entangle natural wisdom, which was observed by various civilizations, with traditional wisdom, but in a different relationship of entanglement. This is the specificity of Greek philosophy. Entangle the two type of wisdom in a different way and make something else which made possible the modern science, but which remains modest. How the Greeks did that? So the Greeks learned from nature and from ancient wisdom all around the Mediterranean, and they learned also from the Indian Ocean, from Egypt and India. They noticed, they observed the nature, they observed the Nile, they looked for the sources of the Nile, they observed the Indus, they observed the tides of the ocean, and unlike any other civilization, they brought all this ancient wisdom and this checking, this entanglement with the natural wisdom in a different system. And this system, we start to see it from the 5th century BC in works like Hippocrates on airs, waters, and places, which can be considered something like the origin of natural determinism, but still something which is different from the 19th century determinism, where you can see how a society can live in very difficult environments because it is adapted to that environment.
We know that sea level is rising. In fact, it is rising for 12,000 years now, and it has already risen 120 meters. And we can, through sea level indicators, geological, geomorphological, archaeological, biological, we can reconstruct the past sea levels. And on top of that, we have the seismic events that in some cases subsides the land, so we have relative sea level rise. And we have an example for in Cyclades, we have found that in 3,000 years, the last 3,000 years, the sea level has risen 3 meters only because of tremors. So I would like to ask you, through all these changes, what ancient people were doing? Did they try to adapt, or in some cases they had to abandon and find new places to live? And most important, what can we learn from what they have done in the past? Because with the climate crisis now, we have similar challenges with them.
Absolutely, Niki. People learn from the environment, and this is how natural science, so to say, ancient science, of course not modern science, ancient wisdom, ancient science, ancient natural thinking was born in Miletus. I mentioned here some geoarchaeological work from Miletus done by the work of the German Bruckner and Kirchner and Stock. So Miletus was an archipelago, and then it transformed into a peninsula. And ancient people noticed that, and this is why we have Thales, Anaximander, Anaximenes, all these people in Miletus looking at how the sea water was rising, but in the same time, the progradation of the delta brought new sediments which built the peninsula. So they were seeing all this, and they were trying to learn in order to adapt. They were also seeing the evolution of the delta, and also noticing that some people have to move away. Sometimes we can adapt, otherwise we have to run away to move. And I put here in the Meander Delta, so in the region of Miletus, the map of the city of Myus, which is famous for Pausanias. In Roman times, people had to go away because they lost their harbor and their maritime relation to the Aegean. So yes, sometimes we run away, but sometimes we fight against nature, and we have to do it in a reasonable, in a wise way, as Angie put it, after discussions and after elaborating. And for example, I give you here from the same team the work on Ephesus. They were dredging the harbors, and Ephesus had like 5 different harbors in time because people from Ephesus adapted to these natural changes and built against them. What we are doing now in geoarchaeology, we entangle not only natural wisdom with ancient wisdom, but also with AI wisdom, with AI tools, in order to propose better solutions. And we have here a project which is at the border between Greece and Turkey on the Hebros Delta, where we are trying to see the changes in the environment in the long run, using AI techniques. We have to use them because they make our work quicker and more sustainable in some way, at least scientifically for now. But what the final message to this I would like to give gives in the direction of what Angie and Spiridon said before. So yes, we have to see this AI intelligence positively. We have to entangle it with the natural and ancient wisdom. But we have to stay wise. And I will just mention one episode which is interesting in ancient history about that. It's a debate which takes place in Rome in the 1st century AD, in the time of Tiberius. Should we change the Tiber River or not? Because it was flooding the city periodically. And after debate, they decided not to change it, so to suffer the economical damages of not changing the river. What is important, I think, it is the debate and the philosophical dialogue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anca.